Hola, my name is Amanda Lohman, and this is my October Spanish Contact Hour presentation. So, summary of my contact hours for this month was over fall break. I had the opportunity to go to a bunch of museums when I was in California, and one of them I went to was a museum of natural history. And I was really surprised because every exhibit throughout the whole museum, half of it was written in English and the other half was all in Spanish. And so I decided to sit there and go through all of the Spanish sections instead of doing the English. So I went through there for about like an hour and read all of the Spanish descriptions of the exhibits, and then I watched a TV show called Donde Está Lisa, and that's what I watched from last month, but I just continued watching more episodes because I was really interested in it. And then for my last hour, I read some Spanish medical articles on the CDC website, and it was in Spanish on their Spanish webpage about diabetes. So my new vocabulary that I learned from the museum exhibits was el museo is museum, el cráneo is the skull, los huesos are bones, el dinosaurio is dinosaur, la especies is species, el fósil is fossil, extinto is extinct, el mamífero is mammal, la arquitectura is architecture, and el cuadro is a painting. So some of the cultural nuances that I found in the museum exhibits, I guess some of the order in the descriptions wasn't necessarily the same, which was expected just because of how things translate. And then some of the words, just because it was like historical terms and like fossil names and different things, like scientific terms, they didn't necessarily translate directly. But overall, it was similar enough to that it didn't cause me too many difficulties going through the exhibits. Then for the TV show Donde Está Lisa, this show again was about a girl who got kidnapped, and so it's continuing on about like how they're trying to solve who kidnapped her and just the whole investigation. The vocabulary words that I found in that was critico is critical, la firma is signature, el indicio is a clue, el secuestradora Dora or daughter is kidnapper, depending on he or she. And then Archivos de la Red is like a network file. It's like something like a computer file. Arriesgar is to risk, and they said like to risk her life. Amenazó con matar is threatened to kill. Discúlpame is excuse me. Machista is a chauvinist, and broma is a joke. More cultural nuances from Donde Está Lisa. I saw actually a lot of Spanish proverbs being used, like por Dios and Dios mío were repeated a lot throughout the show, especially because it was so dramatic. There was a lot of scandal again, and this couple episodes that I watched, there were a lot of affairs and family drama was huge. Everyone was very stressed about the whole situation, and then all this drama started coming up, and in some of the episodes there were like cousins that were hooking up together, and I don't know, it got kind of weird. And then my Spanish medical article that I read on diabetes through the CDC, some vocabulary words that I found in there was encima de lo normal is above normal, so they use that when describing like the blood glucose levels were like above normal, so they're like hyperglycemic, and so they used that term to describe that. La población is population. Los factores de riesgo is risk factors. And demorar la aparición is delay the onset. So some cultural nuances in the Spanish medical articles on diabetes. I guess for some of the English, like on the English webpage, because I looked at both the English and the Spanish to kind of get a feel for what I was actually reading in Spanish. There would be like a word or a phrase as like a heading, and then when I was looking on the Spanish webpage, the translation sometimes was written more as like a question addressing the topic rather than like just stating the word in general. So like it was a weird way of translating it over. And then other than that, the translations were once again like pretty easy to follow. There weren't too many things like culturally that I guess affected it, just because it was more of like a medical article. And the website format made it really simple to follow back and forth between English and Spanish. So in conclusion, this month I felt a lot more comfortable listening to like the language in the TV shows. It was still pretty difficult to like listen and then mentally translate it like from like, the Spanish that they said into English, kind of understand exactly what they're saying in the context. But I definitely felt like as I continued watching and had more of an idea of what was going on in the show, it made it easier to understand. And then I read a lot more things in Spanish this month, as I talked about before. And so it was really interesting to like read the things in Spanish. And I was pretty surprised at how simple it was to apply like the basics in terms of like the Spanish language and conjugating words and everything, and just vocabulary in general that I've learned so far, and like how it applied into real world situations, like in the museum, and then also the Spanish medical articles. And that's all for now. So, adios, clase.